My entire pipeline disappeared, and we were in pretty bad shape. Our real estate, and then that all went away, so she got an invitation to go teach a cooking class at a Montessori school. So that class exploded, to say the least. It was very popular. Disclosed, I wound up spending about $500,000. Yeah, that was a pretty ugly, horrible situation now that I think about it.
Hey there, everybody. It's Tommy back with another episode of Empire Builders. Please welcome to the show today, Arthur Cummins. Arthur, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you, Tommy. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Arthur's freezing his butt off today. It's 55 in Miami, and it's probably like 10 degrees in Colorado, but whatever. Well, Arthur, welcome to the show. We do the same format every episode. So sort of tell us about your current business and kind of why you chose that.
Okay, so we didn't exactly choose it, right? The name of the company today is the Real Food Academy, but started out being called Cooking with Kids Miami. And that started in 2008. So some of your listeners may remember 2008. It was a pretty interesting year. All right, yeah. especially for Maria and I. Maria's my wife. We were heavily invested in real estate, and I was in financial services.
Sure.
So pretty, all at once, we lost all of our real estate. My entire pipeline disappeared, and we were in pretty bad shape. As a matter of fact, subsequently we wound up filing bankruptcy, lost all the properties, and it was pretty ugly, to be honest. So during that time, we had a friend. So what background is in food, just like a lot of people at that time kind of drifted into real estate, right? So Maria was managing our real estate, and then that all went away. So she got an invitation to go teach a cooking class at a Montessori school. So that class exploded, to say the least. It was very popular. Her approach to doing the cooking class was to put nutrition and teaching the kids about healthy ingredients first, right? That was the one thing Maria and I had in common when we met, was my background was financial services, hers was food, but we both had an intense curiosity and interest in nutrition. So when she sat down to do this cooking class, she's teaching the kids how to do a healthy version of whatever it is that they wanted to do. She taught them about the dangers of ultra-processed food. And so the parents really wanted to know, who the heck is this person teaching my kid how to make these healthy choices? So as a result, she's getting a lot of invitations to go to the homes, to do birthday parties. Teachers would invite her to other schools, what became known now as our field trip program. Sure. So those first couple of years, I didn't have a lot to do. I was giving her some help here and there, but she was running all over Miami. She was going to schools, doing field trips, to homes, doing kids' birthday parties. We wound up getting a place in the community center where she was doing her community cooking classes, right? Nice. And during that time, it was growing, as much as it could grow without a location. So in 2010, we got a location of our own, and that's where we added our summer camp program, and we started to scale, and it started to become more of an actual business, and that's when I got involved.
So that's cool. So now it's called Real Food Academy, and you're still doing the same thing? Are you still going out to schools and everything, or are you just all at your own building?
Yeah. So what happened was, the reason we changed the name was because right around 2014, the parents were like, hey, when are you going to let us have a cooking class? When are you going to do a party for us? Or actually team building events became popular at that time. So obviously Cooking with Kids Miami didn't make any sense anymore for a name. Sure. So we changed the name at that time to the Real Food Academy. And that was a small 1,200 square foot place, which we outgrew. We were turning away a lot of bigger groups, and we're limited in what we could do. So around 2017, it was actually 2017, when our lease came up, we got a much bigger place. Where we are now, it's 5,500 square feet.
Oh, wow.
And so, so the business has grown, with the exception of obviously COVID. We're a couple bad years in there, but every year the sales have been up and to the right, and enjoyed a lot of success, and just began franchising last year.
Okay. And so then going into, so so this was kind of born out of, oh man, I got to do something to get some money in here, and it just ended up becoming like this business, right?
Exactly. So I was a guy that put on the suit and tie every day, right? So when my business crashed and burned, I was trying to figure out what am I going to do with the rest of my life.
Sure.
And Maria was just doing her cooking class, right? And I never imagined in a million years that that little cooking class would have actually become a real business. So it was totally accidental. So the money that she was earning was a couple $1,000s a month, and it was putting gas in the vehicles and keeping the lights on.
Yeah.
And, I didn't take it very seriously for the first, year to 18 months until it continued to grow. And there was just an incredible amount of interest in the way she was teaching the cooking classes. And so, and even today, the health and wellness sector is exploding.
Yeah.
Right. So we're really, we could not have been positioned better from a, messaging standpoint, because what we do is very different than anybody else operating in this space. Is not only are we teaching cooking classes and cooking fundamentals, but we are prioritizing teaching people how to eat healthy. That is our North Star. And that's been really the key to our success.
That's great. So then when you guys first got started, so I guess one question too, is Maria a trained chef, or
No.
is she just a great home cook?
No, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked it, because she's not a trained chef. We don't have anybody working with us currently that is a trained chef. So it is one question that I actually make sure I remember to tell a candidate that I'm speaking to, or a franchise consultant, that yes, you have to know your way around a kitchen to some extent. Yeah. But if you know nothing about cooking, you can hire a chef to work in the academy. But my wife was never trained. None of our current, we call them chefs in kind of quotation marks.
Yeah.
Because when we first started, remember, with the kids, it was more of like a role playing thing that we had. Everybody was called the chef, right? We all wore chef jackets and everybody referred to us as a chef, and that stuck until this day. But there is no formal training required, because we offer the training. That's what we are offering as franchisors, is a pretty robust training curriculum. So it's kind of like painting by the numbers in a way.
Yeah. And I can see, like, part of me goes, having come from cooking and I always wanted to be a chef, but cooked professionally for like 10 years during my like college 20s, whatever. Part of me can see that like this would be an amazing job for chefs, because so many chefs want to get back to a 9 to 5, more of a normal lifestyle. I could also see chefs being too technical and too in the weeds with some of this stuff. And so it could be a detriment to them too, because they'd be like, well, no, you're not like julienning properly, or, like they could just get too deep into it. Yeah. And they could not necessarily be a great fit. But I know, sort of the evolution of restaurant employees is that, especially in the chains, is that you work these chains for a series of years, and eventually you try to get yourself out of daily operations and into some sort of above store operations, or just something that keeps you home before 11 o'clock at night, and not have to work at night and everything. So I could see both sides. Yeah,
the chefs that have come through and worked with us over the years are just beyond excited to work with us, because it's like night and day. You're not in the kitchen in a restaurant, working over a hot flame with people yelling at you. It's very stressful, and it's not from what I understand, it's not a very pleasant way to make a living. So if you're a chef and you enjoy teaching and cooking, which most chefs do, I guess, being in our environment is something that they just really love.
Oh yeah.
It's a very, very different experience.
Working in a very fancy or fast, or like just, it can be a very stressful job.
Right.
And it's exhausting, and you're greasy, and you don't get home, and you go out and drink beers at 11:30 at night. It's just a different world.
That's right.
But it's also not to degrade it too much. It's super fun too. And if you have a great head chef and he really trains everyone, organizes everything well, it can be just very like, oh, we're just having a nice time and we're talking and we're making all this food. But it has to be hell.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So when you guys first started, so you're starting your franchise journey. So let's just talk about that for a few minutes.
Yeah.
So, okay. So have you gotten your FDD done?
Yeah. So the first thing obviously we did was put together the operations manual, which
Yeah.
was massive in our case, and the FDD. So we started that process in 2023, right? And 2024 is when we got seriously involved in the consultant networks, working with a top FSO now called Franchise Fastlane.
Sure.
So we're just getting traction right now. We didn't even know that we were going to franchise until a few years ago. We had been asked by our customers, on a pretty regular basis about when you guys can open a location near us. I drove all the way from Fort Lauderdale. You guys got to have one closer up there. And so it was a combination of that and how much my wife, Maria, and I have enjoyed. We just love this business. It's just the quality of life, the financial rewards have been so amazing that, we could have, I'm 62 years old. We literally could have retired. We could have traveled, and we were setting up the company to do that, to be a semi-absentee type of situation. So we put all the processes and curriculum in place so it could operate when we're not around. And then what we didn't realize is that was positioning us to franchise, because we were everything pretty airtight. And so at some point we just said, you know what, we have had such an amazing ride here in Miami. It would really be wonderful to expand nationally. And we made the decision to do that recently, not too long ago, 2024.
So then as a franchisor, are you going to be kind of one of the hands-off type franchisors where we're going to sell you the concept, we're going to give you our ops manuals, we'll help you with the, I'm sure you're picking the marketing software and all those other platforms for them, but are you going to be out inspecting their buildings and stuff like that? Or are you going to kind of go, hey, these are kind of the specs, just send us some pictures type of thing?
No. Our highest priority is to support the franchisees.
Sure.
Right. The validation is, it's going to make or break the franchise system.
Yep.
So while I'm just getting started in franchising, I've listened to, I don't know, thousands of hours of the pros, the franchise people saying that, if you don't get it right in the beginning, you're going to screw up your validation really bad. So it's cost me some money to get to this point right now. So the last thing I'm going to do is leave a franchisee out there to dry, so for one thing, I'm not going to choose just anybody. So they're going to be vetted, and they're going to be what we believe to be the right person for the job. And then we're going to support the heck out of them and make sure that they're happy and successful. Because when somebody down the road says, hey, Tom, how is it? What kind of a choice was it to go work as a franchisee with the Real Food Academy? You're going to either say Art and Maria are the greatest people in the world and we're making a ton of money, it was the best thing we ever did. Or if you say no, it's a big mistake, then we're dead in the water. So we're going to do everything and anything to support our initial people and beyond. We don't have the depth in the management right now to delegate that. So it's going to be Maria and I.
Yeah.
The advantages to the people coming in early is they're going to be working directly with the founders, and with Maria and I, and then also all the territories are available right now. The territories that normally get sold out with bigger, more established brands. Yeah. Yep.
So then, what are some of the challenges you've been sort of facing trying to get this whole process of going to becoming a franchisor? Kind of go through some of the process you had to do and where you're spending your money and all that kind of stuff.
That's a really great question. So I guess it starts with, the expression everyone has heard, like, you don't know what you don't know. So as I was just saying, 17 years into the Real Food Academy, Maria and I, we could literally do any part of that business with our eyes closed. And while I had heard, franchising is another business, you're not going to be in the Real Food Academy anymore. You're going to be in the franchising business. And as much as I heard those things, I really had no idea whatsoever what I was getting into.
Sure.
And just like a lot of things in life, you have to learn, or at least for me, I have to learn a lot of things the hard way, so franchising is a big industry, and a lot of people will take your money and, you trust people, you think that you're doing the right thing and you invest, a lot of money, in my case, a lot more than I want to even remember. But, you make mistakes, you get up, you dust yourself off, you keep going. And so the biggest thing I would say, to answer your question, not knowing, I didn't have a mentor, I didn't have a coach that was giving me any good advice. So I was just doing what I thought was correct. And I made a lot of very costly mistakes along the way. Yeah.
would you say, looking back on that I know there are companies out there. I was talking to a guy a couple of weeks ago who's a franchise broker, but there are companies out there that will help you take your business to become a franchise. Would you, if you could go back in time, would you do that instead? Or would you just try to do what you did?
So say it again. I didn't quite.
There are companies out there that are consultants that you can hire that will take you from your business all the way through to being a complete franchisor.
Yeah.
If you could go back in time, would you do that?
Well, I did.
And work out.
I thought I was doing that. That's part of the problem.
Sure.
So that's what I thought I was signing up for, when I first got started, but it didn't really work. It didn't really work out that way. So now, in hindsight, when I'm speaking to people currently about what I had gone through, the people they're just shaking their head. They're going, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." It's so bad, like what goes on in this industry, that it's just, there are just like in any business, I guess there are a lot of people out there that they're going to make you all kind of promises and take your money, and you'll later find out that it wasn't a good move. So, but I do feel like I'm getting it aligned with the right companies now and the right people.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it is one of those things too, where like franchising is this very unique thing.
Yeah.
And like the FDD is very unique, and each section is very unique. And like, and it is a completely different business because your customer base is one step removed now. Like your customer is actually your franchisee. Their customer, but we have to make sure that their customer is successful or happy so that you get paid, right? Because you can have a million franchisees and if no one's selling anything, it's a lot of work for nothing.
That's right. That's right.
And there's just so many parts to it. So I could see where like at the first look, you'd be like, "Oh, this can't be that hard." But then once you dive into it, you realize there's a lot of details to get between A and B, right?
Yeah. I thought it was going to be easier, to be honest, because Maria and I are very purpose-driven type people. And we had such joy in this business and we made so much money. We just thought like, okay, as soon as we put it out there, everybody's just going to get it. Right. Yeah. And they were going to come out of the woodwork and want to be part of it. And that it is part of it. But I didn't know it was going to take so much effort, to get the word out. And that's why I'm happy to be on a podcast like this, because I am starting to get in the right lane in a lot of different ways, podcasts and consultant networks and LinkedIn and different types of marketing that I'm doing now. I'm starting to meet the right people.
Sure. Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah.
Because you need, as an entrepreneur, you need to believe that people are going to instantly gravitate to this thing because they should just get it. But then, right. And you need to have that belief or you wouldn't push yourself out to go do this and put all the time and money and effort into it. But then when you realize that when you get out into the world that, hey, they've got a lot of other things that are on their minds and you're asking people to part with a lot of money and, all those kinds of things. And so it's like, it gets tougher quick. And then you realize, okay, there's a reason why not everybody's a franchisor billionaire, like on a boat in the Mediterranean,
Right. That's right. Right.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, it's a technical question, but like, what's your build out like? Because you have to put in a lot of appliances.
Yes, that's a good question. So I think I mentioned that our initial space was 1,200 square feet and we outgrew that pretty quickly. So for the last 2 or 3 years in that space, we were turning away a lot of business and it was painful to do that. We now have 5,500 square feet. So we've landed on 24 to 2,800 square feet. We feel that that's the sweet spot where you'll be able to maximize the enrollments and size of the parties and so forth, but not pay more in rent than you have to, right?
Yep.
Now, as far as the build out goes, it's really pretty simple. We need a commercial freezer, commercial fridge, and a commercial oven, right? Most of the other appliances and things are going to be portable, portable gas stoves that we would, according to the menu and the number of people, would be put out for the couples or the individuals to use. But as far as heavy equipment goes, it's very minimal. The layout is very, very simple.
No hood. You don't have to have a hood. That's
no hood. No hood. A grease trap, depending on the jurisdiction, that's going to be on a case by case basis.
Sure.
But it's not too bad at all.
That's great.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody who owns a bunch of crumble cookies, and like a crumble cookie is like 600 or 800K to build a crumble cookie. And you're like, I worked in franchising. I was at Quiznos in 2008, 2009, and that was when Quiznos was imploding. And but you have to, when you're doing a franchise, you have to think about like, what's this rent going to cost this guy? Because you got to sign a 5-year lease. What's the build out going to cost? What's my franchise fees going to cost? Because all that stuff adds up, and all those dollars are equated to minutes, right? Of business. And so if you have $800,000 in debt on day one, then you have to start selling a lot of deals immediately, or you're going to go out of business. There's no way to stop it, right? You run out of cash.
Our item 7 says that the range is 332,000 to 511.
Yeah,
which we feel is pretty reasonable for brick and mortar.
Yep. Well, 2,400 square feet is huge. I mean, you think about like most sub shops and stuff, they're like 1,100 square feet. So that's almost 3 times that, depending.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Okay. So now you got this thing going. You blew a lot of money, learned a lot of lessons, but
that's life, right?
Works for, yeah, exactly. All lessons require money, unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right. So now you're up and running. It's you and your wife. Do you have some prospects? Are you thinking you're going to get some stores open here pretty soon?
We're getting there. I have some people in the pipeline. I'm getting some very quality prospective candidates.
Sure.
Like I said earlier, I'm finally in touch with the right people. I'm attending different retreats for different consultant networks and things like that. And I'm meeting some really super quality people. And that's what it's all about, is just getting the attention of the right people. And I believe that I believe we're going to have great success, because there are some similar brands with similar business models that got a head start on us in franchising. But we feel that our brand is superior, because nobody else is teaching the health and wellness part.
Sure.
And health and wellness is just exploding right now. And we're the only one in the space. We're the first to market cooking school that goes beyond teaching cooking techniques.
That's really cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. I do want to get do you have a war story for us? War story being one of those horrible things you can't believe you got through.
The war story was right in the very beginning.
Sure.
Because as I said, we were bankrupt. We didn't have any investors. We didn't have any rich relatives. So in those early days, it was ugly. We would take a $200 deposit to do a party just to buy a piece of equipment that we needed for another.
Yep.
We were just really hurting during those days, and it was, I couldn't even talk about it for a long time. We're so far removed from it now that I'm able to even discuss it openly like this on a podcast. But yeah, no, it was really, really painful. But I think that in our case, at least, it was what we were doing. We believed so much in what we were doing that was sort of our North Star that kept us going every single day, even when the money was tight. So I would have to say the war story. There was that, and then there was when we made the move from our small place to our current place, the construction project. I got involved with a pretty shyster, real unethical contractor. So I was told the whole build out was going to be $150,000, and because of ADA things and all kinds of things that weren't disclosed, I wound up spending about $500,000. Yeah, that was a pretty ugly, horrible situation. Now that I think about it, the construction was really difficult getting through that. And
I think what you're saying, and actually you're sort of one of the first people that, and I've done this I don't even know how many episodes of this show, and I have my other show, but you're saying something that I think is really true, that no one talks about when they talk about owning their own business, right? Which is, a lot of times there isn't a blueprint for you. No, there's not. And and the shyster people are always the most personable people, because that's how they suck you in to mess with you. And the reality is like, there's no blueprint for this. And a lot of times you have to learn on the job. You make mistakes, you burn a ton of time, a ton of energy, and in your case too, a ton of money. Yeah. And then you have to, and you get knocked down. And it's one of those moments where you have to dig deep and go, okay, well, am I going to just give up and just shut her down and go get a job? Or am I going to fight through this thing and figure it out? And And trust me too, because I've been doing mine for my 11th year, you know, every year it gets harder to keep battling, you know, but then you have to just go, well, am I going to give up? You know?
Yeah.
It's crazy, right?
Got to get to the point of no return, right?
Yeah.
There's no turning back.
Exactly. You know, my buddy told me this. He's like, you know, like a saying is like, if you were like sailing from like New York to England, well, I'm now closer to England, so I just got to keep going, right? Like I can't come back to New York.
That's right.
And I was a stand-up comic for a lot of years, and like in 2005, I was working in the basement of this comedy club with a bunch of dudes that were my friends, and they were comedians too. And then I decided I wanted to go back and get an MBA because I was like, I need to go get like some money, and this is crazy, and I gotta bookend these years with an MBA and try to change the story a little bit. And I ended up quitting stand-up, but not too much. I just cut it down a lot. And then eventually when I got a job, I quit. But those guys that I worked with in the basement that were doing data entry, they got a TV show like 3 years later. You know what I mean? Like you just never know.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just can't quit. You just, because no one else is going to believe in it more than you. You just got to battle through, right?
Yep. Yeah.
But man, sometimes when you get kicked in the teeth, it's hard. It's hard to keep going.
It is. It really is. But you got to be tenacious and put your head down and, you know.
And you never know what move you're going to make is going to be the one that flips it and it just blows up, right? Because if the idea is good and it makes money, it's fiscally sound and it makes money and it adds value, then really all you're trying to figure out is how do I replicate it and how do I get that message to people, right?
Right. That's right.
And you have to keep trying. You have to keep trying. So,
yeah.
Well, Arthur, it was a real pleasure. Thank you
likewise.
So much on the show. And thank you guys for listening, and we'll have some more episodes soon.
Thank you, Tommy.